Hey, what's going on, everyone? It's Azora Hype here. We are ready to preview and break down episode 4 for all of you. And I know there's been some disappointment in the fandom, but we got a lot to talk about. We're going to talk about what we liked in episode 3 and specifically how we think some major things are going to go down in episode 4. Blackfire, Eric, what's going on, my man?
What's happening?
Time to get hype, right?
Let's do it.
Happy Friday, everyone in the chat. I see we got quite a few people here. We got Nicola, Priya Ray, Nymeria Stark. We got Zoe, Mia Icefire, Catherine, Tom Gannon, Liz Kopich. And we got all of that. So all these awesome people in here. There's Weinberger. And I see some of our awesome mods too, Blue Dragon. Yeah, Eric, I don't know where to start today, man. We still got 3 80-minute episodes left in Game of Thrones. Yep. And certainly the fandom is divided after the last episode. Me and you talked about it a bunch, but there was a lot to like about the last episode. Me and you, like, even though there's some things that we were like, okay, we wish would have happened differently, it's still setting up some major things. And I think, with how episode 2 went, I can't help but feel like 4 is going to be kind of that type of episode, but more in the downturn, not as happy, and everyone getting together, previewing an epic episode 5. And Amelia Clark had an interview last night. Let's talk about that. And she said that episode 5 was even crazier and bigger than episode 3. So I think that we need to reserve a little judgment because we still got 3 episodes left.
I agree with you. I think that Amelia probably let it slip. You can tell when Jimmy was talking to her and the audience was like, wait, what? And they kind of went, ooh, that it was potentially she might be giving something away. So, my hope is that there's a little bit more to, let's call it the long night than what we saw in the short night. Yeah, that was really my only qualm. But overall, I thought the episode was really good from setup to even, execution of how it all went down and the characters that were in trouble, a little unrealistic at times for the main characters, but overall, I loved it. Super excited for it. And like you and I talked about before, winter literally fell.
Winter fell. I went and rewatched the episode 2 or 3 times, and this is how I felt about episode 1 too. It wasn't my favorite, but when I went back and watched, I'm like, oh, okay, like this connects to that, and
right.
That's the thing about Thrones. You go and you watch these episodes again, and you're like, okay, that makes more sense. And like these 3rd and 4th viewings that you have, especially for people like us that are doing, content creation, you have to look at every little scenario and try to see if you can, share a piece of information that might not have necessarily been something that was huge, but might have an impact somewhere else, right?
Absolutely. And I think a lot of this stuff, especially when you're talking about the prophecies, is open to interpretation. And being that we as fans have so much time to sit there and ponder it and review it and compare it to the books and then go back, cross-examine, talk about it amongst our peers, listen to the experts like you yourself, Gray Area, Gemma, kind of dissecting and really pointing us in the right direction. That's not necessarily, of course, what the showrunners or what others are doing at HBO. And again, it is open to interpretation, and they don't have very much source material to work with outside of what George has given them as far as an ending. So I can see after watching it, I've watched it now 5 times, after watching it that many times, pausing, kind of thinking about it, I can see where it would make sense of how Arya kills him and how Jon as Azor Ahai, or the Prince Who Was Promised, brought all of these folks together. Yeah. And literally that's what it said. It didn't say that he was going to kill him. It said that, he would bring all this vast army and basically normally folks that would not have been together, and then they would confront the Night King.
Now what's really, we're going to talk about some prophecy and stuff today. I want to shout out a couple more people in chat. We have Helen von Launstein in the chat, one of my homies, or my home slices, one of my YouTube besties, who will be at Con of Thrones this year. We have Nicola, Alan. We also have Amy Collins-Russell, who's been a writer for the channel. She's been helping the channel out, so we can show her some love in the chat. But let's talk about this, because what Rhaegar wanted to achieve, and we heard Jenny's song, obviously, in episode 2. There's still a chance for some of these things to happen. And me and you were talking about this. We were talking about the symbols that the White Walkers left and where Bran was in the Godswood. And I don't know if a lot of you saw it. Go back and watch this scene. But you know the symbol that the wildlings left in the first episode?
Yeah.
That symbol was there with the dead Ironborn right near Bran. And between the Night King and the Three-Eyed Raven. Everyone, if you go check it out, it's kind of hard to see. But I firmly believe and a lot of people are asking the question of where did Bran go? I think it's the wrong question. When did he go? I almost felt like in that moment, the Night King and Bran could make a pact because Bran thought that they still might lose. I don't know. Maybe it's just my gut feeling on it, but I have a feeling that the third twist of the series, man, it's with Bran. I can't be talked out of it.
I'm going to agree with you now. When you first presented this to me a couple of days ago, I had to take a minute. You saw I didn't respond to you right away because I had to digest it and go through it and really watch the episode again. But I started rewatching some of the other episodes that were tied specifically to the Night King and to some of those things that we were seeing, right? And it's a possibility. I think that it's definitely a possibility. It's interesting, and you pointed this out, when we're looking at the opening credits and we're looking at the different castles. Let's talk about King's Landing.
Let's talk about this.
Godswood.
So, Eric, just throw it right at us, man. This is insane, everyone. You really have to watch to see this. And by the way, there's an awesome Reddit post on this. I'm gonna go check it out and share it with you guys in the comment section because there is someone who has been sharing this on A Song of Ice and Fire Reddit who's been making awesome posts. I was having conversations with the Disputed Lands, Amanda, Eric here, and just a few other people, and it's really interesting. So go ahead, Eric, share what you found.
Well, it's interesting that when you pan over to that area and you're taking a look at it, and I had to pause, to me it looks like King's Landing is, I don't know how else to say it, upside down, or potentially even burned to the ground. I don't know. I still am trying to figure that portion out. Yeah. But we know previously that the showrunners like to give us some clues when in that opening scene. So go back and take a look at it and analyze it and see. Also, what's interesting to note, it looks like the
God's Eye has moved.
God's Eye, dude, it's right there. It's right there.
The God's Eye is right beside King's Landing in the shot. I'm going to go try and find it for everyone right now. Just give me a second, and we're going to show it. It's crazy.
It's crazy, and that's not where it's supposed to be. So it makes me think like they're doing a super panned out version of the map because the God's Eye is supposed to be next to Harrenhal, which is en route to King's Landing anyhow. So I don't know what that means, but I think we should just open it up to the fans that they can take a look at it and come to some of their conclusions. Or we can ask now, what do you guys think, what that might mean? Or have you guys seen that yourselves?
So we're going to talk about something else in a second, and I'm absolutely going to blow your minds, everyone. I think this is the third twist of the series. I'm going to be presenting it in a huge video tomorrow, but I'm just going to find this picture. Eric, talk about why while I find this picture, talk about why you think this twist could be with Bran, and especially what the Three-Eyed Raven said to Bran, because that's really important, what he said to Bran, right? Like, hey, we saw him affect Ned. He said the ink was already dry, but was the Three-Eyed Raven lying to Bran is the big thing.
That's a good question. It's a funny question because this whole time we've just been under the impression that the Three-Eyed Raven is the helper and he's good in all of this. And George has been on record several times as stating there really isn't anybody that's good or evil. It's your perception of what's happening on screen and their perception of what their reality is. So to me, even myself, I got caught up in the Three-Eyed Raven is, kind of like the Messiah and all of this, telling us what we need to do, or can look to the future, can look to the past to put together all the clues. But is the Three-Eyed Raven really who he says he is? And at this point, to Kyle making that point earlier, we don't even know. Bran is just a host almost at this point. and we don't even know. We know it's not Bran. We know it's a collection of the three-eyed raven, or let me state this a different way. He has all of the memories and all of the visions, both past and future, of what's going to happen. But to me, it almost seems like he's a host, Kyle. I don't know what you think on that, but
my computer's freezing up here, guys. I'm trying to figure it out. I don't know why my mouse and my screen is freezing, but I'm trying to figure it out. But here's the thing. I think that let's go back to what the three-eyed raven told Bran. In the scenario where, so he goes and sees the Night King, right? He sees the Night King. He goes off and gets curious. And this is only after he sees the creation of the Night King, right? So he's like, he touched you. And that Bran made this whole plan with the Godswood, right? He made this whole plan. That was Bran. The thing is, though, is when they go to the Tower of Joy, look at the three-eyed raven's face. He's like, shit. Like, he was showing guilt or remorse in that scenario. Like, hey, don't make the same mistake that I did. Right. So is Bran there to clean up the three-eyed raven's mess? Because listen to this, everyone. This is crazy to me. Me and you both went and rewatched this scene, the beheading scene with Ned. All right.
Yeah. Yep.
So when Jon tells Bran to not look away, Ned also says a madman sees what he sees, and the next thing that happens is it pans to Bran. Then Ned says, Lord Protector of the Realms and the Seven Kingdoms. Then it pans to Jon Snow.
Did we lose you? I think we lost Kyle, everybody. Just give it a minute. Hopefully he'll be back. While that's happening and we're waiting for Kyle, I had to move sides because the Night King disappointed me by dying so quickly. So I'm back on my other side here with Danny and John primarily. I don't know if you can see some of that. Of course, I moved my my Blackfire banner, but outside of that, take a minute. Let me just move out of the way. You can see some of the goodness that is John and Danny, and even a little bit of Tyrion. Complete with, I might add, a music box.
What?
Can you hear me?
Night King warped my internet.
Well, I was trying to keep them busy with some visual, and now I've got a music box going.
All right, everyone. So where were we before this happened? I'm gonna go find that Reddit post again. Where did I cut off?
You cut off as you were talking about how it panned over to Bran, and then it panned to John after he said it panned to Bran. He said, "Got to watch him," and then it panned over to John.
So yeah, in that scene, and I gotta get these super chats because you guys are dropping some donations here. We will make sure we get to these. Thank you very much. I think that scene actually foreshadows the third twist, everyone, because it like. In this scenario, Jon tells Bran not to look away, but it's also about the man who passes the sentence has to swing the sword, right? And it's about this idea of honor and what it really is. And this guy isn't lying when he's coming from the wall about the White Walkers, right? So it's this whole thing and you see Ned. Ned's like uneasy about it, right? And I just can't help but think that that's the third twist, man. I really can't. Chat, we need to know what you're saying. I'm gonna find this Reddit post for you because it's insane.
Yeah, do it. And I'm going to agree with someone in chat said to follow the actor who played the Night King because he's dropping some major spoilers.
I don't know if that's really him though. I don't know if that can be confirmed that it's his Twitter for sure. Is that him?
Right.
But,
I don't know. But the person in chat is right. Whoever it is, they could. I was just going to say they're potentially dropping some spoilers. We don't know for sure, but it sounds like it's a potential that is indeed the case. But yeah, I'm hoping that the showrunners didn't make it that easy. And I'm hoping, given the fact that even they were on this week with Jimmy and they were saying how much they love the books and they've reread them and they had to guess, who was Jon Snow's mother prior to George even letting them do it. So there were some quizzes that they had to pass in order for George to even accept this deal. And I would have to assume that this is one of them. Now, again, guys, I know that the Night King is not something we've seen in the books yet. But I think it's a tie-in at some point to either the Night's King, the Lord Commander, the 13th Lord Commander,
which is the first time we saw the Night King in the show. There's 12 figures behind him, so that's kind of interesting, right?
Right, and maybe that's what they're pointing to. D&D, I don't know, or potentially it's something else that George just hasn't revealed to us in the books. So, but again, I really think that there's going to be more to it than what we saw. It was just too convenient. And let me just go on record because there's been a lot of people that have been stating that they don't love the fact that Arya killed him. I'm fine with that. I loved it. It was good. Jon has had many of his moments. He's been the hero all along. It would have been too fantasy for him just to go in there and kill him. Now, I would have loved to seen him fight him. Don't get me wrong. I would have loved to seen Jon fight him, but then maybe the dead get raised up, kind of like what we saw. Or maybe Jon fighting some more White Walkers, or Brienne, or Jaime fighting some White Walkers, Jorah. But overall, I thought it was a good episode. But definitely, like you said, Kyle, not one of my favorites. I still like episode 2 as one of my favorite episodes.
Oh, that was such a good episode, man. They're really like that. Those moments were just so great because we knew that there was going to be chaos coming, right?
Yeah. Cogman set it up for us. And unfortunately, we went from one of the best episodes ever in the history of Game of Thrones to what we got with the battle, which was good. It was really good. But you went on this high, and then now you're coming back on a little bit of a low.
So I found the Reddit post, everyone. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna do this. I'm gonna show you the upside down King's Landing right now. It's crazy, man. I can't unsee this. And the change in everything that's happening in the opening is curious, obviously with the tiles and everything too. Let me do this. I got to screen cap this, everyone. There it is. So, all right, this is what it looks like. Now we're going to zoom in. Look at this. There's King's Landing, but it's upside down. And look at this right here. That looks like the God's Eye to me, man. Why is it so close? Is this an error? Or is this intentionally put in there? That's what I'm wondering about.
I'm of the same mindset. But when we've seen that before, that's been typically near Harrenhal. Yeah. I don't recall, and I got to go back and take a look at all the different openings, but I don't recall any body of water outside of the sea being that close to King's Landing.
Same. So I'm wondering what's going on here. They are obviously foreshadowing things. Like one thing that I found during the 3D thing in King's Landing was the ballistas, the scorpions, the things that shoot the giant arrows, and there's the Skullable area and the Black Dread. So I don't know if they're teasing that that's going to happen in King's Landing. And like, where's Harrenhal though? You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know, man. This is really weird to me. And in this Reddit post, this is the one right here. I'm just going to share this with everyone. I shared it. I'm going to share it in the chat for you all again. I highly suggest that you go read it. It's great. I had a chat with the gentleman who did this post, and he's actually watched a few of our live streams, so we had a nice chat. But he thinks there's something definitely up here, and there's some interesting things. He thinks that he talks about the story of Ragnarok and in Norse mythology, and like Loki, the great other in the books, which is, there's not really a Night King figure per se for sure. That's confirmed in the books, right, Eric? So the great other is talked about as this deity that could be linked to the White Walkers, perhaps.
Right. And so is D&D trying to tie in the Great Other with the Night King, or at least giving us some kind of general that's leading the White Walkers potentially? The Great Other is supposed to be the nemesis to R'hllor. At least that's what is being foreshadowed in the books, but we don't know yet.
So what's crazy too is, let's think about this. Bran had the conversation with Jaime Lannister, right? And he said, I can't kill you. I got to keep you alive. You have a purpose in the Great War. Like, I love that Jaime and Bran fought together with Oathkeeper and Widow's Will. Symbolically, Ice was united in episode 3. But here's the thing, though. If we look at Bran's Hold the Door after vision, do you remember that one? It was really fast, everyone. But after the Hold the Door, the episode where Mira's taking him through, I think it was the Haunted Forest, wherever that location is during that storm. He sees himself falling out. He sees the Night King with the baby touching the eyes, but he also sees the future. He sees the destruction of the Sept of Baelor, and he sees Jaime Lannister killing the Mad King and also sitting on the Iron Throne. So what I think happened here is that Bran saw that Jaime would be able to deal with Cersei if it came down to it, because Cersei's the one who's sitting on the Iron Throne. There's going to be this scenario again where I think, and I mean, looking at Daenerys' house, the Undying vision, the Red Keep looks like it's destroyed. I think that Cersei is going to place wildfire everywhere around King's Landing, like the Mad King wanted to, and I think King's Landing is going to be blown up.
And I agree with you, and it would make sense because she knows the dragons are coming. She's heard about how, their prowess in battle when they fought against the Lannister men as they were leaving Highgarden and trying to transfer that gold. It would make sense if all of a sudden the dragons are igniting the wildfire, and the wildfire is strategically positioned at the gate entrances so that the armies can't come into the actual castle itself where the Iron Throne is.
Well, you know what it could also happen here? We know that Jon and Daenerys don't want to kill innocent people. So what could happen is Cersei could try to do these things in this way. Put wildfire all around the city, which would make using the dragons, if they knew that wildfire was there, then them using the dragons would just explode King's Landing, and then they would just kill a bunch of innocent people. And Cersei opening the gates to King's Landing and letting people in is so freaking devious, man. She's evil, man. She's if she does that, risking innocent people's lives so that she can become more safe. And also in this scenario, think about it. If Jon and Daenerys, someone like Daenerys, for example, were to explode the wildfire by accident, Cersei could frame Dany and Jon as tyrants.
Oh, absolutely. And that's something that's got to be going through her mind. She's looking to nullify those dragons. And how did she do that? By putting people in front of it, innocent lives, so that Jon and Dany don't attack with the dragons, because that's their only advantage at this point. The Dothraki are gone. You've got some Unsullied left. We don't really know what that quantity, how many, but they really have nothing that's going for them other than the dragons at this point. So do we get additional who didn't show up?
I think the ballistas, I think she's going to have some of those scorpions for sure. Those are going to happen. But then we have the scenario of, okay, who knows the sacred passages of King's Landing? Varys is still alive.
Right.
Arya, Tyrion. And I think that if Cersei does open the gates, then close them and becomes more paranoid. Let's say in the next episode, because in the preview trailer, Euron gets the one knee and he's like, marry me. And Cersei says, no, I need you to do one more task for me. Attack Daenerys' fleet. Or whatever is left of the survivors. And then Euron dies, less and less people will be around Cersei, right? Sure. And we still have Yara left. I'm not saying that Euron's going to die in this episode. I'm just throwing it out there that there's going to be a scenario where Cersei is feeling more. It's gonna mirror what happened with Mad King Aerys. I'm certain of it. I think she's going to close the gates.
I think that there's something to what you're saying. And if you read the Entertainment Weekly interview with Kit Harington, Kit said that the next episode is one of his favorites. If you go back and see some of the additional episodes that he's labeled as his favorites, those weren't the battle sequences. Those were the setup to the battle sequences and the political intrigue and the movement or shifting of pieces within the Game of Thrones. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens. They've got to take this time to travel down to King's Landing at this point.
Yeah.
And what are the interactions that happen along the way on both sides, not just Jon and Dany's, but also on Cersei's. But even with Jon and Dany, now the Great War is done. We're going to go back to who is the rightful heir to the Iron Throne. And that's going to be hinted at potentially that there might be another Dance with Dragons outside of the one we just saw.
So we're going to get to the super chats. I haven't forgot about them. Sorry about that, everyone. Ray says, look at the actor who plays the Night King on Twitter. He did say, whoever this person is, I'm not sure if is Vladimir Furdik, but it does say he touched him at the end, teasing that, there could be this like transference of consciousness. We talked about this idea of is the Night King able to switch bodies? And is that why he was collecting Craster's babies? Because little Sam is still there, right? And there could be a twist with him, Eric, right?
Oh, yeah, for sure. I'm also interested to see, we were talking last time about how we thought Bronn was going to show up at the latter half of the episode, and he didn't. So I'm curious now to see, because clearly he's left King's Landing. Maybe he meets them, does a little bit of a parlay, or just meets with Tyrion and possibly Jaime to talk about what's going to happen. Is it an ambush? Does he kill them? We don't know.
We have Helen, who dropped 2 donations. She said, I need Cersei to survive. My bet is they won't kill her. She'll become a nun. She'll become like a silent sister. That would be interesting. She loses everything, and she's like, she has to. I mean, I don't see her surviving, but I mean, it certainly would be interesting to have her have nothing left and her become this, this kind of person that is like pious. I don't see that happening. But Helena von Lohenstein, the Night King got Kyle because we dropped earlier. Thank you for that, Ray, Helen, and then Philip Wolf. This must be how Theon felt when Bran walked away. So some jokes when we were having some issues here. We have how many people here? Holy moly! We have almost 1,200 people here. Thank you for joining us today.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much.
So, let's get some questions from chat. Like, there's a lot of things that we're gonna talk about. Obviously, one thing that I did want to mention, and I saw someone, I think it was it Tywin Lannister or Jon Targaryen in chat? It was one of the two. Mentioned who was gonna kill Euron, and me and you were talking about in the books. Euron's gonna, and Axie mentioned this last week. Euron being the third act villain in the books, he's gonna steal a dragon 1,000% in the books, and he's doing some crazy like great other-esque shit in the books. So I think it's going to be interesting that because Euron has been really disappointing in the show so far. Are they saving his? I mean, there's 3 episodes left. Are they saving it for these next 2 episodes of the Euron?
I think so. Euron is a combination of Victorian and Euron in the books, and Axie seems to think he's an additional person in the books as well. Potentially that's the case. I think they might be saving let's say the best for last, if you will. But you're right. I've been somewhat disappointed with his overall arc within the show, and I gotta see more outside of that battle of him fighting his niece and nephew. He hasn't done much for me. So okay, here's the thing: Battle of King's Landing. If we're gonna we've already had some of these repeat scenarios happen, do we get a Battle of Blackwater 2.0? Because listen, if Cersei closes the gates to King's Landing, right? We're going to have a scenario where, Stannis was trying to get into King's Landing. Do we have another repeat scenario of Dany and Jon's forces and Yara, and then Euron doing that as like, oh, I'm guarding my queen type of shit. You know what I mean? With the Battle of Blackwater 2.0. Maybe, but the only way that their ballistas or scorpions or their dragon killers are going to be effective is if they're on land. I don't see those being on a boat. So if my point there being, if Euron takes the Iron Fleet and goes to try to he's going to get murdered by those dragons. He's going to get murdered. And instead of wildfire in the ocean, we're going to see dragon fire with the boats like we did before when she was over in Essos.
I'm not sure if they're saying you're sexy or you're on sexy in chat. I'm trying.
I think it's Euron.
Okay. There's a lot. Euron, the crazy psychopath is sexy. Yeah, it's gonna be. And so there's a lot of things that gotta happen in the next episode. We got a couple more donations. Betty White, does the Aftermath trailer make more sense now with the Night King walking away? So some people think that there's still could be a chance that the White Walkers come back, and that's another thing. The Night King walking away. I don't know. So let's talk about the Dan and Dave interview on Jimmy Kimmel. Let's talk about that.
Okay.
That's really interesting. What did you think about that? So first of all, explain what happens to the chat.
Well, we touched on it a little bit, but it was the whole Jimmy went in and asked, how did you even get this? How did that all happen? They had to pass a series of questions like we kind of talked about before. George was basically giving them an on-the-spot test to make sure that they understood the books and that they truly read them. After I talked to George and I asked him about it, he said, look, Eric, I wanted to know if they read the books, because I've had so many different people come to me and ask me if I want to make these into movies or make them into something else. And a lot of those folks couldn't even answer the very basic, simple questions. So,
by the way, Eric is talking about George R. R. Martin. He knows him personally, by the way. They've been to plenty of different conventions before. So just so everyone understands, Eric has had conversations with George R. R. Martin. Continue.
Yes. And it's not anything as of late because George is super busy, but this has been back when before he even blew up. But yeah, so it kind of kicked off with that with Jimmy, and I thought that was great that they talked about that, and they were trying to paint the picture that they know what they're doing. That's what Dan and Dave were doing, and I know that they've read a couple of comments and seen the backlash of what's been going on with this last episode, and that's the reason why they said they wanted to take their wives and get out of town for a while, just because they don't want to be around for what's to come. But they also said, when asked specifically by Jimmy whether or not the White Walkers or the Night King, is that done? And they just said no comment.
Well, he said I can't answer that. And then DB Weiss was like almost shaking his head. A lot of people think Dan and Dave are trolling. I get why. But
sure.
But I don't know, man. I like all the other questions. They said there's a possibility of that, but that question, they answered that differently than all the other ones. So are we getting trolled? It's possible, but I don't know, man. I still think there's a small possibility of there being like this magical twist at the end of episode 4. It's going to either happen at the end of episode 4 or it's going to happen in episode 6, right near the end.
Agreed. We also know that Dan and Dave are taking a very literal, let's say, I don't want to say copy, but they were inspired by the Lord of the Rings. So
I mean, the whole Arya scene was exactly like the Eowyn Witch King scene. I mean, I am no man, and she stabs him. I am no one. So it's like,
yep. Look, let's talk Arya. She's the GOAT. She's the GOAT of all time. If she, not only because she's killed the Night King, but she's literally been the top assassinator throughout the series of all these major
Frey.
characters. Yeah, Frey. Yeah.
House Frey.
Right. Not just Walder Sr., literally House Frey.
So I dropped an Arya video the other day for those of you who haven't seen it. It's called How Arya Stark Ended the Long Night. And I know a lot of people want to see the Jon thing. I still think Jon's going to do it in the books. But Eric, we talked about this. George R. R. Martin literally has said about prophecy, be careful with that. It will bite your prick off, right? And also, he also said, so what if a 12-year-old girl conquers the world? He straight up said that about Arya. Okay? Yep. So I'm just saying.
And he's put it out there that prophecies are open to interpretation. That's why I started this conversation by saying that. And that prophecies were meant not only to be interpreted differently, but not necessarily to come true either. So, or to come true in a different viewpoint. And that's also interesting. So again, guys, you got to rewatch the episode a couple of times and try to be unbiased with what you think you thought the prophecy was, or maybe what some of us have told you what we think the prophecy was, and just kind of go in with an open mind. And hopefully you'll come out of that feeling like the episode was a lot better for you.
What's really interesting too is when Melisandre talks with the Brotherhood Without Banners, and she says the whole eye thing in the show, which is really interesting. But like she says to Gendry, you will make kings rise and fall. And people think that Melisandre is looking for Gendry in that scene, but who's right beside Gendry in that scene when she says all of that stuff? Arya Stark is right there.
It was right. It was Arya right there. You're putting me on the spot on that one. I'm time. Wait a second, Kyle. Wait a second. Yeah. Arya. She's been in a lot of those key moments. And to me, you can still have a Azor Ahai be Jon, or the prince who was promised be Jon, and Arya be your light bringer. There's different ways that prophecy can make sense.
Yes,
if you start to think about it.
Waking dragons. The prince that was promised one in Azor Ahai. There's definitely some differences too. I tend to think that those are two different people, personally. But yeah, it hasn't really been discussed as much in the show, right? I mean,
right.
I think the prince that was promised prophecy is specifically linked to Rhaegar and Lyanna and Jon.
Yes,
personally. But
yes.
I mean, the Azor Ahai prophecy is a little bit different.
And I agree with you. Yeah. In the books, I 110% agree with you. On the show, I don't know if that's necessarily the case.
Yeah. We got 2 more donations. Philip Wolf, thank you. What has been your favorite moment from season 8 so far, and what would you like to see before it's over? Oh, geez. I mean, I'm really excited to see the Clegane Bowl, obviously. I know that's kind of a fan servicey comment, but I am I mean, the thing I'm most excited for is to see this. I think the twist is with Bran Stark, people. I think that the reveal, I think that we're gonna see another flashback of some kind still. It seems like I think they're holding it for one other one, right? And not like some flashback of some sort. That's what I'm looking forward to, Philip, is if there's another flashback, because I think there's gonna be another one, and it's gonna be a really big twist.
There's gotta be. Arya, I think there's got to be flashbacks. I think there's got to be something else that is going to allude to potentially what you and I have been talking about, that maybe Bran isn't really Bran and Bran's somewhere else.
When he talked to Jaime in that scene, he's like, I'm something else now. And Mira said he died in that cave. Now, let's think about this for a second. What if Bran is stuck in the past? That scenario where he wore Hodor and all that stuff, he never left that cave for real. What if he is stuck in that time? And listen, if you stay too long, you'll drown, Eric. Imagine he's whispering through the trees and through the fire. Who gave Sandor Clegane that vision in the flames? Could it be Bran in the past, man? I don't know. There's something about that scene, and like I think that there's a precedent for the whole hold the door thing, the Hodor thing. There's got to be another payoff with that for me. I think.
Yeah. I think so too. I'm really, guys and gals, I'm really trying not to think too much into it, because I've seen a couple of comments that we as the super uber fans out there are really diving in, and we're thinking through it a little bit too hard, and maybe we might know, and I think we do, more than Dan and Dave. They haven't broken it down to this extent that we all do, and you guys are right. But it goes back to some of these things have to tie in, and they do a lot of tie-ins that I am very satisfied with, is probably the best word.
Yeah.
Given that it's a show and they're not going to get into as much detail with the books.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is that we had such a long time off too, and we all theorized. And like I said, this Reddit post that I shared earlier, I'll keep on sharing it in the chat for you guys, is excellent. I would highly recommend going to say something awesome. Just like there, of course, us as because we love it so much, we want to know more about it. We want to have discussions with other people about it. That's why I create content, because I want to create a discussion to have conversations with people like you, Eric, and everyone in the chat. So therefore, we are looking at all these hypotheticals, and most of the time we're wrong, Yeah,
I agree with you. But it's fun to talk about it and to think about all the different avenues and things that we do know about the books. But Moonlit Maiden in the chat said that D&D don't want to spoil it what's in the books, but I think she's partially right. but there aren't any books for them to go off of, except for, I think, an outline that George has given them of what he plans to do for the final.
So we got another donation here. Betty White, can the Hound become a believer, overcome his fear of fire, and use Beric's flaming sword to kill the Mountain? Well, that's really interesting. In the last episode, I mean, he saved Arya's butt. Arya was going to stay and try to help Beric. She could have been in trouble in that situation. Of course, Melisandre was talking about how Beric was there to help protect Arya. You know what I mean? And in the books, he revives Lady Stoneheart. So he has, and Lady Stoneheart has this vengeance theme, right? Where she's, because of what happened to her family. And she's like, and Catelyn was always super concerned about Sansa and Arya. So that's pretty interesting how the Beric arc goes in the show. But for the Hound, I mean, his whole arc is centered around this idea of transformation and ending up having to deal with the one thing that has ultimately been a thorn in his side his whole life, and it's his hate for his brother, and that's what it's going to come down to. Now, his brother, is he a white, Eric? Like, what are we categorizing the Mountain as? Franken Mountain? I mean,
so yeah, he's Frankenstein basically. You've heard me talk about undead and whites being the same thing, or zombies and whites being the same thing, and they basically are. He didn't die, actually. So Qyburn kept him alive. He was on death's door, but he didn't actually die. So to me, he's literally Frankengregor or Franken Mountain.
Yeah.
And at that point, Sandor would already have a hard time fighting him, just Sandor against the Mountain. So what is this going to do? Because it seems like being so large, he at least felt when he was fighting against the Viper, right, against Oberyn Martell during that match to free Tyrion. I don't know if this new Mountain feels anything. He just seems to be almost robotic.
GQ Daddy says in chat, how about a White Walker? I like that. we actually got, so Judy made a donation, and she didn't have a question, but she just posted another donation about Daenerys Targaryen. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about Amelia's interview. So we'll come back to more, and thank you, Betty White, for the question on the Hound. We're definitely going to talk a little bit more about him. We're going to jump all around over the place. This is not necessarily going to be super cohesive, everyone. We're just going to try to answer as many questions as we have as we can today. So Judy says, Danny, let's discuss Amelia's interview, because she said that episode 5 is going to be more epic, and Kit Harington says episode 4 has a Shakespearean feel, because they have to deal with the funerals of their friends. And it's not like episode 2 where there's all these things connecting people and they're getting ready for this big battle. This is kind of a coming down, right? They're going to be in more of a depressive state, but they still have to plan for this final war, right? So
right.
Where do you see it going with Dany? Because in the trailer, she's getting the Tears of the North. She certainly fought her ass off in the last episode. That was one of my highlights of the episode. I thought that Dany took out tons of the army of the undead, but it also looks like there's one scene where she's walking away and she's probably struggling with the death of Jorah Mormont, the person who loved her unequivocally, like he just loved her no matter what. And I think that obviously we see the death of Jorah Mormont, and he died protecting Daenerys. So is that going to be a heavy weight on her shoulders? Is that going to, the last pieces of advice he gave to her were to trust Tyrion and try to get along with Sansa. But is Dany going to do that is the question.
I think that she will to an extent. The problem for Dany that I see is that she's now got it in her head that she is the heir to the Iron Throne.
Yep.
And if you're following historically in Westeros, not here in the real world, but historically in Westeros, the heir would have passed over to Rhaegar, who then would have passed over to one of Rhaegar's children. That doesn't mean that she doesn't have a claim. That doesn't mean that she could not necessarily take the throne, but it could be all a moot point if they get married and they live happily ever after. Now, I don't think that's going to happen, Kyle. I don't think that's going to happen. Yeah. I think it's going to go down where Jon doesn't even want it, and he's going to walk away from it. But what does that mean for Dany? Does she end up getting it at that point? I don't think so. I think there's going to be some things that happen to Dany that are going to be somewhat unexpected. I see people in the chat saying that they don't want necessarily Dany to live, and others that, you know, want her to be queen.
Yeah.
I'm of the first group. I don't, not that I don't want her to live, but I think that she'll either be sacrificed or something will happen to her where she won't be around to sit on the Iron Throne.
So let's talk about the House of the Undying vision then, because this in the books it's absolutely insane. She sees Robb Stark. She sees all sorts of different stuff. She's literally hallucinating, right? It's much more diverse in the books. There's so much more, but in the show, specifically the throne part, and this is also in the House of the Undying part in the books as well, but she doesn't touch the throne. And in the books, the snow is capitalized, right? She doesn't touch the throne, and there's snow on the throne, which teases Jon Snow. So in the show, how do you see that? Because in the stained glass window, there's a blue rose, which signifies the love of Lyanna and Rhaegar. She doesn't touch the throne. She goes beyond the wall. She goes through the storm, which I guess could be symbolic of her fighting for the North, but she doesn't listen to, she doesn't stay, and she listens to the calls of her children. So ultimately, what do you think the House version, House of the Undying version in the show means to you?
To me, it means that she worked so hard to get to where she thought she wanted to be. But if you go back and watch the beginning of episodes, and even if you're a book reader, you go back and you start reading again the beginning of how it's set up, Dany never wanted to be the queen, or never wanted to come back necessarily to rule. That was her brother's dream.
Series. Yeah.
And so because of that, she's thought that she was the last Targaryen, and so she thought it was her duty to do that and to come back and take what was rightfully hers. But now we've talked about years and years of her thinking this, or at least wrapping her mind around it so that she could become that person. And now I think she's going to come to the realization that it doesn't necessarily matter that I'm the queen. I really think that that's what it's going to come down to, that we're going to have a ruler. Now, the question becomes, I'm going to go back to that marriage thing. I think that at some point, Jon and Dany I think they do get married in the show. I really do.
What about a kid? The kid, because the thing beyond the wall for me is that a representation of her leaving the Iron Throne for love, because she goes beyond the wall. Jon has fought beyond the wall. The blue rose, the chink in the wall that smells of sweetness. That's love. Are they going to have a kid? Because I could see both of them walking away. If Dany is pregnant, they're going to have a kid just to go to Winterfell or something, and we have Sansa and Tyrion left over or something like that. You know what I mean? And
that could potentially be. I don't know if they'd go to Winterfell. I think Jon's done with the cold. I think Jon wants to retire somewhere, maybe down south.
He did say he wants to go somewhere warmer to Ed. So.
Yeah. And Dany's also alluded to the fact and pointed out that the dragons aren't eating well because they don't like the cold. They don't like the north. So that could be something that happens. They could both walk away. I
go to Essos. Go to Essos.
Yeah, why not? Go back to where they originally were from. Maybe they work
on with the red door, the lemon tree.
Maybe they work on Valyria and try to remake Valyria again. I don't know.
That would be cool, man. Oh my God, that would be crazy.
I would really like to see Tyrion to some capacity taking on the throne. I know a lot of folks would like to see Sansa, and I'm okay with that too, but more of a democracy, if you will, instead of a monarchy.
Definitely. The idea of the Iron Throne being melted down, the breaking of the wheel, let's define breaking the wheel. What does that actually mean? What do they have to do to break the wheel? Because Aegon the Conqueror, like the symbolic Jon being I thought he was going to be the 7th in the show. He's the 6th, which makes sense, right, from the timeline. But the idea that Aegon the Conqueror built the Iron Throne and another Aegon melts it down. Jon's name is Aegon. That's certainly symbolic.
Yeah, agreed. And when we're saying breaking the wheel's already hitting all kinds of roadblocks on the road, and it's not working. And it hasn't been working for quite some time. And unfortunately, it's just getting worse and worse as not only politics, but you have corruption within the system, the current feudal system that's in place, that's just not working out. And everybody is keeping their armies close to the vest, if you will, because they can't trust literally the next kingdom that's over. Even with marriage ties, it's not working out like it used to, right? In our world, you marry maybe the Prince of England off to the Princess of Spain, and now all of a sudden you've got an alliance, and Spain will help England. That's not what's happening in the Game of Thrones with Westeros, unfortunately. So again, democracy is where I see this going. The lordships will be taken away, and it would be great. You know what's been fantastic in this episode, Kyle, that I've really appreciated is you've got someone like Jon Snow, and we didn't find out that he was Targaryen until way late, but it was literally, he's done so many great things, and yeah, he is a Targaryen, and yes, he is of noble birth, of royal birth, but we didn't know that, and we were still watching him do all these fantastic things, and he was supposedly of low birth that whole time. And all those other,
the bastard, the term bastard defines, I mean, the whole conversation between him and Tyrion, you know,
exactly.
What does that actually mean for him?
And all of those other ones that are at the wall, right? A lot of those are not of royal, of course, not royal blood, but of loyal, of lordly blood, right? They're not lords for the most part. And so they've all done, though, fantastic things within the series, thus proving the point that being highborn doesn't mean shit. It doesn't mean anything.
And you know, the overarching, I mean, Jon Snow says Kit Harington said episode 4 is going to be Shakespearean. I mean, we got tragedies in Shakespeare, but also the central theme of family, right? And this idea of identity and what that means to each of these characters. And that's what George is exploring, these heroes' journeys for all of these characters, right? And that's what we're seeing. I mean, we're at 3 more episodes. We're going to see really where these people fall, you know, like what their destinies are. Right. And yeah, chat. Awesome. Thank you so much, by the way. We got a couple more donations there. Let's get back to this discussion in a second. I want to talk about some of the things we could possibly see because it looks like Dorne might be on the battle plans there. So
I would hope so. They haven't lost a lot of men along the way, right? They did get a lot of their monarchy or their leadership taken out. And we know that Cersei had some still in prison. I know they were given the poison, and we've assumed at this point that they've died. Yeah, they've got vast major houses down there with all kinds of men and women that can come up and fight and assist Jon and Dany for taking the Iron Throne.
So, friend of the channel, you got to meet George Sartiano as well. He was chilling. He was actually at the party where we met George R. R. Martin together. So
right. I met him, but it was real brief. Sorry, George.
Yeah. So George has a couple of questions. I'm going to read them because they're funny comments, but he also has questions. Will the Arya waif fulfill the Valonqar prophecy? And he says, will Arya kill Cersei wearing Ned's face? So let's talk about this quick before we get back into the political part of it. The green eyes. Is Arya just going to be so OP that she kills Cersei as well? I think that it has to be Jaime. I would be really, really mad if Arya does it.
Listen, a lot of people keep going back on that whole green eyes thing. And my question back to them, because I keep having these discussions with my friends and with random people. You mean to tell me that Arya has not killed anybody with green eyes yet? She just wiped out all the Freys. There's got to be one with green eyes.
Brown eyes is Meryn Trant, right? I mean, does Walder Frey have blue eyes? The waif has blue eyes.
The whites have blue eyes. Walder Frey, I think, had brown eyes. Yeah. I'm assuming that someone in there had green eyes as well. Now, other people are like, yeah, but they wouldn't have called it out if it wasn't so significant. Okay, maybe, but I'm with you. I think it's going to be Jaime or Tyrion. I just don't see it being anybody else. Other people are saying, well, you know, Arya's a faceless man. She could take Jaime's or Tyrion's space. She could, and that is a possibility. We at this point, guys, I just don't know what Dan and Dave are going to do, and I personally would be disappointed if it was Arya again, because Arya's had the biggest moment in the series thus far. It doesn't get any bigger than taking out the Night King.
It really doesn't. We're going to talk about Qyburn too, because I think that's really interesting. Shahid, I hope I'm saying that correctly. The three-eyed raven equals the great other. Sent the Night King as a threat, so they think they are safe. Jaqen recruits Arya to take out his creation. He wants Jon versus Dany. That would be really interesting if the three-eyed raven is trying to have a Dance with Dragons and is playing this higher level of chess of Game of Thrones. That certainly could be something that could be an interesting twist in the end. Of the three-eyed raven is manipulating this final breaking of the wheel, right? And kind of
I agree with you. If we go down that path of what we were thinking, that the three-eyed raven is not necessarily who he says he is,
Loki, a Loki-esque character, yeah,
right? Then there's got to be there's potentially other things that the three-eyed raven wants to see happen. To me, it's almost like when we started talking about this, the very first thing I was thinking of was Thanos and him snapping his fingers, right? Is that what the three-eyed raven's trying to do? Is he trying to do a culling, if you will, of Westeros?
But I mean, like sacrifices. I mean, we know that the Children of the Forest and the three-eyed raven. I mean, the Children of the Forest weren't happy about their trees being cut down, and they got slaughtered by men. I mean, they didn't have the weapons to fight, right? So there's certainly this ancient feud that there could be a lot more to that than we know, and we know there's going to be a prequel, and I think they're saving some of that for that. But I think we're going to see just a little bit more. I don't think that we're completely done with that storyline yet. Maura Lee has a donation. We're going to do a little quick dance because we've had some awesome donations today.
Let's do it.
Type in love. Oh, it's freezing.
Oh,
Thank you very much, Maura Lee. Really appreciate that. I have another. Let's talk more about. We have Mercedes. She has a question about Qyburn. We'll go to that in just a second. But let's talk about the War Council, because we were talking a little bit about Dorne, and it looks like in the trailer, the episode 4 trailer, it looks like Dorne is going to be there with one of their bannermen. And Missandei, Daenerys, and Varys are. I should probably pull up the trailer. Let's talk about it. I'll pull up the trailer and we can watch it. But what do you think about Dorne being involved, and what do you think? Because it does look during the funeral procession, does look like they're divided. There's Dany's side, and then there's House Stark. They're kind of still teasing this idea that they're going to be divided. So what do you think is going to happen during this planning? Because I don't know, man. I think there might be some disagreements.
Well, I think it goes back to, again, the political part and the vie for power of who's going to sit on the Iron Throne. Yeah. And it's not necessarily, look, Jon is the Warden of the North, and he's the Lord of Winterfell, but Sansa's truly running Winterfell. The backing has now switched from the allegiance of, hey, you're King of the North, we will be with you, Jon, to, oh, now you've bent the knee already. You didn't even last a week, and you've already bent the knee. Let's go over to Sansa because she's got our best interest in mind. I'm hoping that the Northerners themselves have seen that Dany and her dragons, everything would have been lost without them, and that there would have been no North had Dany not shown up with the Dothraki, although they did nothing.
Let's not even talk about that.
Let's not talk about. Okay, fine. Let's not talk. Let's talk about the Unsullied, who literally held the line.
And you know what's interesting too? We got to go back to the Tyrion and Sansa crypt scene, and Missandei throwing shade at Daenerys.
Loved it. Loved it. And she's trying to paint a picture to Sansa. Everybody keeps saying Sansa is so smart. Sansa's so smart, and she is. But is she playing the Littlefinger game where she's just giving lip service to Tyrion because she knows or is expecting something else to come in the future? Or is she just talking? I took it that she was literally talking from her heart as to what her thoughts were, and Missandei shut her down. So back to your point, though, yeah, you've got that divide, but Cersei hasn't made any friends within the realm. Nobody likes House Lannister. Literally nobody. So who's left to rally behind Jon and Dany? Dorne. Some of the knights from.
Well, what is Sansa doing with Bronze Yohn Royce? Because we didn't see him in episode 3, right? And they had that similar, like, there's a similar scene there where it was like Bronze Yohn Royce is up to something for Sansa, maybe in the Vale. We know that the Vale. I mean, he bowed when Daenerys was there to talk to Sansa, but I don't know. I mean, it looks like we're still going to see the Eyrie, possibly. I mean, because Sweet Robin is going to be in an episode,
right?
And also Edmure, he's supposed to be cast.
We still have River Run. We still have those and the Trident. So we still have plenty of houses there. There's some knights there. You know that Royce didn't take all of the Knights of the Vale and head up north. There had to have been a retainer that stayed with the Lord of the Eyrie, with Robin. So there's got to be some lords there.
There wasn't that money in their battle flank when they were situated there. I found that really interesting.
To me, it felt like it was half. And I'm just going off what I think. I don't know. There isn't anything that I know other than that. But then you've also got Cersei went down and murdered, the Queen of Thorns. So there's no more Tyrells, but there's plenty of lords that were the bannermen to the Tyrells. So there's a Highgarden. That territory, that whole territory, can rally behind Jon and Dany, and of course that includes Storm's End and the Storm,
which is a magical castle that Bran the Builder built. George Sartiano brings up an awesome question in the chat. The Iron Bank. Cersei made now Tywin Lannister's conversation with Cersei. Cersei's being super ignorant. Tywin talked about how you don't screw with the Iron Bank and how the Lannisters don't have as much money as you think they do. And we hear Daenerys in the trailer say root and stem, right? So the root and stem thing stands for not only Varys' privates, okay, but it stands for the elimination of a line.
Yep.
So are we going to see the end of House Lannister? I think we might.
It's potential, but does that mean Tyrion?
It's who? A Targaryen? I don't know, man. That would be crazy. But what would happen with Tyrion then?
Exactly. I don't know. But George brings up a good point. The Iron Bank. The Iron Bank is so powerful because they have everybody's money, like literally everybody's money, or everybody owes them something.
Yeah.
So, but you've already hired the Golden Company to come out there, which is the best group of sellswords in all of Essos. Are you bringing the Second Sons? Are you bringing, because we haven't seen, last we saw the Second Sons, they're holding down
Marine.
Right. Are they going to show up now?
People keep on asking about him. I don't know.
For me personally, I think his time is done on the show, but we might get a cameo.
Who knows, man? Who knows about Daenerys?
But yeah, the question becomes, back to George's point, the question becomes, who does the Iron Bank bring over? Because they're backing Cersei. So do they send more forces out there to continue to back Cersei?
Yeah, that's really interesting because the Golden Company's contract, and you're called Blackfire. This is your nickname. Eric's nickname is Blackfire. So the Golden Company's contract. Let's talk a little bit about that, and then we'll talk about Qyburn, because Mercedes do you think Qyburn will betray Cersei? We'll get to that question next.
Yes. Blackfire. That is me. My name, actually, when George was creating the Hedge Knight, I think some of you were on when I was talking about this. We were talking about how to, what was the bastards, the legalized bastards of the Targaryens. The name Blackfire was thrown around. And George and I actually spent a lot of time afterwards talking about the implications and what that name means and how it's going to tie in so greatly with the series later. Anyhow, the Golden Company, they're only supposed to be coming back to Westeros if there's a Blackfire that could potentially or would potentially sit on the throne. I don't think Dan and Dave are going to play that angle. Yeah. I think, though, that the angle they are going to play is, instead of Blackfire, they're going to play true Targaryen, or true heir to the throne. I think that's the angle. And
so this would leave a scenario.
Yeah. So if that's the case, then who is the true heir and who do they end up supporting? Currently, they just took money from Cersei, but I think that was the Iron Bank's money, really. I don't know. I think if I'm remembering correctly, most of the money that they took from Highgarden was to pay the Iron Bank back, and they don't have much money left. Could they afford the Golden Company, who've never lost a battle, who fight Dothraki and always win?
It's certainly interesting, and let's segue this into Qyburn, who is offering money to Bronn. Now, here's what's really interesting, everyone. Mercedes, thank you for your donation. Do you think Qyburn will betray Cersei? Cersei didn't truly let the Mountain kill Jaime when he left last season, but Qyburn was there with Bronn, giving a command from Cersei to kill Jaime and Tyrion. Did Cersei actually give that command, or was that Qyburn? Because I think that's really interesting, because we didn't see Cersei give Qyburn a command. It says Qyburn there on Cersei's behalf. And Qyburn, yeah, he's able to do some experimentation, and certainly he's enabled by Cersei. But who's Qyburn loyal to? Qyburn. So I don't know what's going to happen with Qyburn, but I certainly think it's interesting. He took an interest in the White's Hand. We know he's created this Franken Mountain character. I think he's going to do something really messed up.
I think so too. He is in it for himself. He was literally hanging out with the sellswords. And I can't, forgive me, I'm the name's escaping, of the sellsword group that was working for basically Robb Stark, and then he switched his allegiance, and he's definitely in it for himself. He wants to further his chain in the necromancy type arts, or the undead type arts. That's why he got kicked out of the Citadel to begin with. So it's going to be interesting to see if he's truly loyal to Cersei. I think he loves the fact that he's been put in a position of power, that he can practice what he's really wants to do, that's intrigued him all along. But I don't think necessarily that he is a pawn of Cersei's per se.
So what's really interesting is that Qyburn was the one to show Cersei the scorpion. He showed Cersei the bolt went through Balerion the Black Dread's head. The skull, sorry. And then in the intro, if you go and watch it for episode 2, they show that through the Red Keep and everything. Now, what's really interesting is he said, I have a plan for the Dragon Queen, and people are bringing this up in chat. Is there going to be a scenario where a Drogon gets killed and then Dany is captured somehow? Because look, the whole Meraxes dying in the Hellholt, right? And Rhaenys, we don't know what happened with Rhaenys exactly, who was the dragon rider from Meraxes. She could have been crushed by Meraxes, and there's all sorts of other theories that she was captured by Dorne and tortured and shit like that. But what's going to happen with that? Because if Dany gets captured, then Jon has to go get her. But Qyburn's all about experiments. I don't know, man. Like, is he going to is he going to transform Daenerys into something crazy? Or like, I don't know, man. He said he has a plan for Daenerys. I'm not saying it's going to work, but the fact that they mentioned it is really interesting, right? I have a plan for the Dragon Queen.
Yeah, I found that interesting also. I'm thinking in the show that we're not going to get any more Franken people. Yeah. I think we're going to cut it off with Sir Gregor. But it would be interesting if he does experiment on her and she is pregnant. How about that?
Oh, and like some people are saying that Bronn is going to be the one to kill Drogon. I mean,
well, he showed he was close.
Yeah,
he was close last time. So he might have perfected some of his his shooting skills that we haven't seen on screen.
Some people have, like, there was a comment in my chat my comment section. Someone said he's going to revive Balerion the Black Dread. He's done it. Like, I just don't think that's possible. But I mean, he's going to do something. He's going to do something crazy. Qyburn.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think it's possible to revive Balerion, who's been dead for so long.
That's just insane.
300 years or something. So
yeah, that's not happening. Science experiment. Yeah, he's gonna. What's Qyburn's purpose? I mean, he's giving Cersei weapons and he's helping out with all these other plans. I don't know. Alan has a question. In the fight between the dragons, I think Rhaegal had cut under his belly. Actually, if you look in the trailer, want to watch the trailer together? We can watch it.
Let's do it.
Let's watch the trailer, everyone. And then Alan, we can, because Rhaegal has a hole in his wing. We're gonna share this. And we're going to watch the trailer together, everyone. Let's do it. Let's do this. And there's going to be no sound, but we're going to watch it. And there we go. So there's the bodies burning. There's King's Landing. And then here we go. We'll just do it full screen. Everybody sat at the funeral. Dany's saying, we won the Great War. The dragons. And then, see, we're going to go back to that spot in a sec. And so, look at this. Let's go back to Rhaegal for a sec. There's Dany's fleet. There's Jon. There's Sansa. If we, there's a hole in Rhaegal's wing. Can you see that right there? That's Rhaegal, because it's more green for sure. And we see Dany's fleet and the dragons flying over. But and then there's Cersei. But yeah, so to answer your question, Rhaegal is still alive, Alan, but it looks like they're banged up for sure. And maybe Rhaegal dies. I think there's a possibility that both dragons die. I mean, if one, I don't know, man. Rhaegal definitely got roughed up. I mean, he had the big scratch on his chest. He's got a hole in his wing. He's kind of resembling Viserion a little bit, you know?
Yeah. That was the Dance with Dragons that we were looking forward to. And to me, that part of the show was literally epic. To watch two dragons, and then, of course, Drogon getting involved as well at the end. But watching both of those dragons fight was awesome. It was literally awesome. But my question was, where was Rhaegal? I guess he was just too injured to try to attack Viserion when Jon got the bright idea to scream at him. But yeah, I think that they're going to be integral to going down there, and they might have a strategy that they won't be able to use. But I personally like the idea of the dragons dying, the direwolves dying, and magic leaving the Westeros and the area, and literally that not being such a strong presence for the future.
The idea of humanity having to move on with all of it, the idea of all these wheels being broken and them having this dream of spring stopping. I mean, they finally get a chance to get it right. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
yeah, this is their chance to make it right and to not repeat history, right? Because I think that's what they're also. We've had the long night before. Well, it looks like we won't have the long night again. And now, right? We don't know. But that if the Night King is dead, maybe we won't have the long night or the short night. And we'll see. We'll see if magic is still going to be in the world at the end.
So we got another donation here. I'm just a little bit confused, Jeff. I saw you mention it a couple times in chat. Are Blackfires fire resistant? So is anybody else fire resistant, I think is the question. And shoot Scorpion. If you can just clarify that for me in the chat, I appreciate the donation. But I don't Dany isn't 100% fireproof in the books. But, you know, in the show, we see this ice and fire. Dany burns the Khalsar and she's walking out of two fires you must light. You know, this whole prophecy stuff that comes from the books, but we know that might be less important now. So I don't know if anyone's fire resistant other than Dany in the show specifically, but
right. We know for a fact that Dany is fire resistant in the show because it's happened quite a few times. But Jon is also Targaryen, and he's been burned before. Go back to when he was defending Lord Mormont, he burned his hand when he put it into the fireplace, and he was trying to get the poker or could have been the sword to stab the white that was going after Lord Commander Mormont. Yeah. So not all Targaryens clearly are fireproof. Now, to answer the question about the Blackfires,
he says this: are Blackfires resistant to Dragonfire so they can shoot the dragons? I think he might be referencing the Golden Company.
I think he must be. Blackfires are not resistant, at least as far as we know in the books, to any type of fire, let alone dragon fire. Now, the tie-in again with the Golden Company and the Blackfires, there were some descendants that were Blackfires that were part of the Golden Company, but as far as we know, all of those descendants have been killed off. So there aren't any other Blackfires within the Golden Company that we're aware of.
Even Jon, he gets his hand burned. People are mentioning this in the chat, and it affects his sword hand when he gets for the watched in the books.
Yeah,
so
he's more magical than anybody else in the entire realm because he's got the magic of the Stark blood as well as the Targaryen blood. But clearly, he's not immune to fire.
Yeah, so that's really interesting. So what we're gonna do now, I think did we get all the super chats? I'm pretty sure we did. Really appreciate everyone with the awesome donations. What we're gonna do now is we're gonna open it up to chat because we've been going for over an hour, and want to go for another 20 minutes. You got another 20 minutes, Blackfire?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. KB Dodds, we got another half an hour in us. KB Dodds, love and hype. Thank you for the donation. Let's take some questions from a chat. Let's do this. And thank you, everyone, for joining us today. If you're enjoying this, you can like the video and subscribe. We're always doing lots of content here on the channel. And if you're liking what Blackfire has to say, his social media and all that is in the description of this video. He's also appearing on the awesome channel, Happy Cool, while doing some after shows and stuff like that. So, Qyburn will bring back the Night King. I've saw this mentioned in the chat. I don't think we need to answer that one. I appreciate the question, but I don't think so. Maybe Qyburn does an experiment, but Varys, what's his role? Because he's in line with the Blackfires in the books, we think at least, and we think that the other Aegon character is a Blackfire. What do you think about Varys? Is he just straight on Dany's side in the show?
Varys is clearly like Qyburn, where he's almost got his own agenda. He wants a better Westeros, and I find that odd because he's not from Westeros, but he's basically adopted it as his homeland. Yeah, in the books, he's associated with the Blackfires. We just don't know to what extent. We almost think that it comes from the female side. So although he is a descendant of the Blackfires, he's not truly, correct.
Last female.
Yeah. He's not truly a Blackfire, but again, we got to wait to see how that plays out in the books.
Her name is Sarah, I believe.
I'm sorry?
Her name is Sarah, and she's in league with Illyrio.
That's correct. That's correct.
And we haven't seen.
It's also been rumored that Illyrio could potentially be part of the Blackfires as well.
Yeah. So that's pretty interesting. There was another awesome question I lost.
I like someone in chat said Bronn could potentially be a Blackfire, and that is true. We don't know, and we also don't know. You know, the Daemon Blackfire, who was the first Blackfire, was had looked exactly like a Targaryen. So he had the silvery hair, very chiseled looks, very strong. And so not all the Blackfire descendants look like Targaryens, and not all Targaryens look like Targaryens, as we see with Jon. So I guess that could potentially be something, that Bronn could potentially be a Blackfire.
What's really interesting is what Varys got told from Melisandre, and Melisandre's now dead. So the idea that it teased both of them are going to die, and that Varys is going to die in Westeros. What's gonna happen with? Is he gonna die in King's Landing in the wildfire or something like that? I don't know, man. It's gonna be interesting. If Mel saw it like that, I don't know if he's gonna survive.
It would be really fun, actually, if we had spider on spider, because Qyburn's the new spider. So a literal fight between the two spiders. I think that would be.
Ooh, the Kevan Lannister situation from the books. Maybe because Kevin Lannister gets killed with the crossbow. He dies in the Sept of Baelor explosion in the show. So maybe we get some sort of and we get the crossbow given to Bronn. So there's kind of a connection there with Qyburn being the spider. He's in league with obviously the little birds in the show now, and it seems that they're split. Varys definitely still has little birds in King's Landing, I'm sure.
Oh, for sure. I almost think that those little birds are just acting as Qyburn's birds, and they're really loyal to Varys. I mean, and why wouldn't they be? Varys had to have taken care of them all these years. These are kids from Flea Bottom, the streets and the ditches and the sewers that had nothing, and Varys, just like Varys, was raised up and was helping them. And he has a special place in his heart for these kinds of kids. Qyburn, again, has his own interest in mind. I think Varys does to an extent, but Varys overall is looking at the greater good for Westeros and what that means for all of the people.
Varys was a master thief, by the way. He's like a ninja, kind of like Arya in some ways. There's actually a question in connection. Eric, donation, thank you. Varys knows that Tyrion is Mad King Aerys' bastard son. So Varys definitely knows more than Littlefinger knew things about Lyanna and Rhaegar, right? And it hinted at that in those conversations with Sansa. But Varys knows more than we think we know. Maybe some of that happens over the next couple episodes. Some of that is kind of shown.
I would hope so. It's time. We're running out of time. It's time for Varys to come clean on what he knows and what he can assist with. And does that mean Bran can confirm a lot of that? Yes, but we need someone who knows firsthand. I'm not necessarily of the camp that thinks that Tyrion is half Targaryen. I'm not opposed to it, but I'm not 100% bought in yet. Although we know
the dragon scene where he interacts with the dragons and Varys is there.
Sure. But we do know that Mad King Aerys was one to take advantage of his right at the whenever people got married, and he did fancy Joanna, which was Tywin's wife. So it's possible that he is.
And that's where the split really started to happen between Tywin and Aerys. Tywin he only smiled when Joanna was around. That's the person that truly made him happy. So that's certainly interesting. I think we'll definitely see some more from Varys over the next couple episodes. Oh, $5 super chat from Game of Thrones Progressive. Arya got the Night King kill because no one defeats death. Dany dies in childbirth. Ooh, so like a repeat scenario where Jon is ending up like Ned. That would suck. Jon implements.
Did Lyanna foreshadow what was going to happen to Dany? It could happen, sure. I'm definitely not discrediting it.
Thanks, Chrissy. One of our awesome mods in the channel. Jon implements a democracy like we saw with the Night's Watch. I mean, the really interesting thing, I kind of like this idea of this iron table. You know, the set. If you watch the history and lore, you'll see the Seven, and you know all these people look like they're sitting at different points of the star. I like the idea of the Iron Throne being melted down and him creating this table where everyone has. It doesn't matter your gender. Your last family name, and Jon has straight up said your last family name doesn't matter. He's trying to tell everyone. That's a really bad impression, by the way.
Yeah, I thought you sounded just like Kit right there. Actually.
Wow. I mean, you know what? I'm going to shame myself right now for a terrible impression.
Shame.
Oh, that was bad. I apologize, everyone. Don't unsubscribe. But yeah, I think, you know, I definitely think there's going to be a situation like that in the end because that's the breaking of the wheel. That's how it happens, right? And then the new wheel happens, this idea of these people coming together like this Arthurian legend, Knights of the Round Table, where people have, you know, people like Tyrion, people like a Brienne of Tarth have a stronger voice. People like Yara, like the Iron Islands, their culture has been, you know, incredibly male dominated for so long. So
it would be awesome to see something where we got an election within each of the kingdoms. So you had 2 or 3 different representatives from Dorne and 2 or 3 different representatives from the Stormlands. And those folks sat at the, we'll call it the Iron Table. And
why not?
Yeah, why not, right? And met with the president or the chairman or whatever prime minister, whatever name we're going to get. And there was a vice to that. And they talked about ways to making Westeros better as a whole instead of making just their small community better or just their land or their area that they govern better.
So we got Georgia Girl, constitutional monarchy instead of hereditary, which is, I mean, Joffrey was definitely not fit to rule, and so other people were definitely not as well, including some of the Targaryens. So I think that's where they're going with it for sure. And you know,
I think so too. It would be interesting though to see, Kyle, what they do with the church now. So you've had church and state where they were in unison, then they were at war. Now they seem to be, well, there isn't really church that we're aware of because everybody got blown up. But how does the church now fare with this new either monarchy or democracy? That's going to be interesting to see how that plays out.
We saw, I mean, the Arya kill of the Night King, we talked about how that was very Lord of the Rings-esque. The Iron Throne has a lot in common with the One True Ring. And the theme of power is going to be explored very deeply over the next 3 episodes. So I think that central theme, and this is one of the central themes of the Song of Ice and Fire, and especially the name Game of Thrones. All right? That's what we're getting down to at the end here. So I think that in the next episode, there's going to be some really interesting things that happen because is Sansa staying in the north? Like, who's leaving? Who's staying? Where is everyone going? Right? Like, are they going to Dragons? Are they going to King's Landing to meet? Like, are they going to try to treat Like, are they going to try to come to an agreement? I don't think that that's possible, right? Because Daenerys is saying root and stem, like there's going to be a fight. And we know that there's going to be a fight. I'm just saying, like, where do these other pieces fall?
Yeah, I agree with you. It's going to be interesting. She literally wants to make sure that something like this doesn't happen again. But again, she's considering herself as being the next monarchy. And her line, she doesn't know that she can produce, so she needs to name an heir. And remember, Tyrion said prior to this great battle, you need to name an heir. Who's your heir going to be?
So you think we're going to see that next episode then?
Yeah, potentially.
Let's talk about this then. Jon's parentage being revealed next episode and what implications that would have, because that would be the bombshell, right? It hasn't happened yet.
No, it's only happened to a few people. We've got Sam knows, Bran, of course, knows, Dany knows. I think Varys knows. If you go back to season 1 and Ned said, hey, I want to write down something and I want it to go to the wall. I got to send something to my son, Jon. He handed that note to Varys. Varys knows. Why hasn't Varys said anything thus far?
I'm in agreement there too. And if it happens, then what would Varys do about it? Right? Would he think that seeing what Daenerys has done, and who would Varys think is more qualified in the situation? Right?
Who would he support at this point? And maybe he chooses not to support Jon, but more pushes to a unison or a marriage. Again, that seems to be the way it's going to go. And
that goes back to the conversation between what Davos was saying. What if a just man and a just woman and a good man were able to, like, this idea that this could happen, right? So I think that Jenny's song. Let's talk about this, how that ties in a little bit too. With Prince Duncan and Jenny of Oldstone, Prince Duncan Targaryen could have taken the crown, right?
Absolutely. Yep.
Are we going to see this repeat scenario happen with Jon and Daenerys?
That could have been a foreshadowing where Jon is the rightful king and he decides to pass it over to Dany instead. Potentially. Again, Jon doesn't want it. Jon does things out of duty, but Jon's on borrowed time and he's tired. He's the most tired. What are we calling him? 24 years old at this point?
Someone pointed out, Anton, by the way, who runs a great Facebook group, by the way. I think it has 170,000 active users. He calls it a realm of ice and fire. I'm going to go grab that link right now. He says that Varys in this situation says nothing lasts, as opposed to what Davos is saying, right? So that's pretty interesting.
Yeah, that is. And is he saying, does he know something? Is he saying that something's going to happen in the future, or is he just generally making a statement based on history and what has come to be historically? I don't know. Good catch, and I like it. I think I'm actually I'm part of that Facebook page.
Yeah, it's a good one. Courtney Matza, who will be coming on the channel on Sunday night. She's a moderator there. I don't know if she's here today. She's awesome. She's going to be dressing up for Sunday night. She has an awesome costume. I'm not going to tell you what's going to happen in that one. We actually have another donation, and yeah, it's a great group. I just put the link in the chat. I'll spam it again a couple times so everyone gets it. Here we go. No, that's a super chat that I saved. Never mind. Oops. Super chat. Thank you from Tag. Maybe Dany will name Sansa heir to get the North. Oh, I don't know about that. What do you think about?
I don't like it, given what's transpired between them up to this point. I don't like it.
Just gonna drop this in here. So let's take a few more questions. Let's go for another 5 or 6 minutes here. I think we can get a few more in. There's the link to Anton's group if you want to join the community. We post awesome memes. There's awesome discussions. She does history and lore watches, so that's pretty cool. What else? What if Sansa is kidnapped? Ooh, that's really interesting.
And I talked about this, and I think you and I talked about this a couple of weeks ago, but I thought that might be what Bronn does, is he ends up kidnapping Sansa. There's got to be a reason. Jon has to be interested going down to get the Iron Throne. Outside of him telling Dany that he wants to do it, or that he would do it. He doesn't really want to do it. So what's his motivation for going down there? Is it because Dany gets taken? Is it because Sansa gets taken?
Is this because he doesn't want to piss off Daenerys and now they're together? That's a great point, man. Where does Jon swing on this?
I don't know. Again, Jon's tired and he wants to go retire somewhere. So if the sooner they can get rid of Cersei, the happier Jon's going to be to move on with his life.
And Alistair Thorne, you'll be fighting these wolves forever, Jon Snow.
Oh, another good impersonation.
I'm not going to shame myself again for that.
That was good.
But yeah, I agree with you. Like when Daenerys turns to him, what do you think, Warden of the North? He's just like, yeah, we'll take your help, Jamie. Like he's just like so over it.
He's so tired. He's like, I just want a good night's sleep. I want to relax a little bit. But again, he's on borrowed time, to me anyways. If you've been raised from the dead, you're on borrowed time. So we'll see what happens with Jon. But I think that the quickest and easiest path to resistance is the way that Jon would prefer at this stage.
We got another donation from Rick Hoppy, the Maester of Coffee. I'm actually drinking.
Ooh, love that name. Good name.
Some Ethiopian Yirgachevian coffee, which is some of my favorite. And Rick says, what does he say? Let me scroll up here. This is going pretty fast. Looking forward to seeing you at Con of Thrones. By the way, for those of you who I'm going to be going to Con of Thrones, are you coming now?
I'm going to Con of Thrones, y'all. Let's do it.
Hell yeah. There's going to be amazing parties. I'll be on 5 panels, I believe. So I got some new ones.
I am panelist, and I like it that way so I can make comments from the audience.
But if you use the code AZOR and you haven't got your ticket to Con of Thrones yet, it gets you a discount. So yeah, check that out. Thank you very much, Rick, one of the patrons of the channel. Thank you for your continued support. I saw there was a question from Karen Richmond in here somewhere, or just a comment that I liked. I gotta find it.
I do like Kenny D's comment where he says Sansa is useless. Dany was out there fighting. She's definitely useless from a military capacity. She's not going to do much. But what I heard, Kyle, was that there was actually some fight scenes they cut out of Sansa and Tyrion fighting some whites down in the crypts. Did you see any of that?
Sorry, repeat that again. You just cut out for me.
There was some footage that they ended up cutting out of Sansa and
the Sansa and Tyrion fight scene, which was supposed to be they cut that out. Yeah, that's really interesting, man.
So yeah, I agree with that comment that she doesn't bring much to the table militarily. But she does bring a lot to the table as she's learned from Cersei and from Littlefinger. So
and the Queen of Thorns and Marjorie.
Yeah. She's been around and has learned how to play the game better probably than anybody at this point other than Tyrion.
So it's going to be really interesting. Let's talk about Sansa before we go here. Sansa, actually, let's go for, you know what? I'm having so much fun. Let's extend the stream. Everybody want to see some more? Type in chat. Let's just extend it some more. Sansa. So is she going to do some Littlefinger shit? Like, I don't know. I'm really torn because there's this push and pull with Sansa. I'm like, I want to believe that she's not going to do something ridiculously stupid. But then there is this scenario where I'm like, could she do some Littlefinger shit that ends up costing Daenerys her life or something? Or if she's manipulating Tyrion in some sort of way, I don't know, man. I'm really torn about it.
She learned from the best. I'm torn too, because again, we're trying to break the wheel. If that's the case, then she's got to go. And I think Jon and or Dany are going to see that, and they're not going to stand for it. It doesn't matter.
We're really going to see in the next episode, Eric, that like who falls where, right?
I think so. We have to, because the following episode has to be them arriving down for 5 has to be them arriving down in King's Landing, dealing with Cersei, maybe even partially part of 6, and then 6 is the long farewell. Yeah,
that's a great point. Like Sansa staying in the north, she sees the dragons flying off, so she's clearly not in the first deployment of wherever they're going.
Yeah, why would she go? She doesn't want to go see Cersei. She had nothing but bad times down in King's Landing. She's going to stay where it's safe.
But her look is one of concern for, I think, Jon especially, but also like we haven't seen the Vale, we haven't seen Riverrun. Could Sansa go do some Littlefinger jetpacking to some of these locations?
Sure. Yeah. She could go to the Manderleys and take some ships down there and potentially travel to those different areas and talk to her uncle Edmure from Riverrun, or head over to her cousin Robin. Now, Sansa and Jon are literally related to everybody north of King's Landing, all the major houses that are left.
So it's going to be interesting to see. I mean, Cersei's getting all of her troops ready in King's Landing. I don't know if she's going to, like, she's just probably going to stay in King's Landing. She probably won't mobilize her forces. That doesn't seem like a good strategy for her, you know? But
no, I had predicted that the Golden Company would be at the neck and that they would potentially be trying to hold the neck, or at least presenting somewhat of a challenge so that the North couldn't just march down so willy-nilly. I think that I still like that idea. I just don't think it's going to be all of the Golden Company.
Yeah.
But yeah, if she's going to hold herself up in King's Landing, and either I remember she was ready to kill herself during the Battle of Blackwater Bay.
With poison.
Yeah. So if it comes down to it, she might be ready or thinking that she needs to do the same thing in this situation as well.
But I think this time, I think she might be willing to blow up King's Landing.
She knows about the wildfire. Let's use it.
Nobody's going to have the throne except for me. Yeah. Someone made a great point. There always must be a Stark in Winterfell. Sansa being there is definitely important, right?
Yeah. Agreed.
I don't see Sansa going. I just find it interesting. Like, she hates Cersei, right, man? She does.
She hates Cersei.
I want to see her somehow involved in Cersei's downfall. She'll
be there to show up at the end as she's getting her throat slit or something.
That would be crazy.
But yeah, that theory of, or that saying that there must always be a Stark in Winterfell, to me, that had always tied to the Long Night or to Winter is Coming. Now that Winter has been destroyed, at least as far as we know, we don't know for sure, but as far as we know, does that saying really hold true? Or I'm not so certain. Yeah. Or will Bran be coming with him? Maybe he's still technically a Stark. Maybe him staying would satisfy that. I don't know.
I don't know though. I have, like, you know how Melisandre didn't go with Stannis, and I think that Bran is going to go with them. I don't know. And with the upside down King's Landing thing that we showed earlier, I think we might actually see the God's Eye and some freaky ass flashback shit with.
Remember, I said no.
Bran is a huge player.
Kyle, I said no before, but you've got me. I'm turning into a believer with we're going to get some God's Eye now. I'm hoping. I hope so.
I freaking hope so. Guys, it's probably just wishful thinking, but I don't know, man. Like, does Bran go south? Like, does he need to? Probably not, but I don't know, man.
I mean, he's fulfilled his purpose, but yeah, he still could strategically. He can look to the future. He can see what's happening, but there aren't any werewoods over in King's Landing, so I don't know how they're going to play that out with Bran's werewood vision. That, you know,
but if the God's Eye is that close to King's Landing in the show, and that's how they're doing it, sure. I don't know. I don't know, man. I think it's just an error, probably, but I mean, it's certainly interesting that it's upside down. You know, we got another donation here, Eric. Uncle Benjen. Are we going to see him again?
We're not bringing Benjen back. I don't think so. I think he's another one that died, came back, but for some reason wasn't evil. The children, you know, used the same method they did with the Night King and shoved that dragon glass in his chest. The question becomes, since he was already dead, you can't die again. So did they tear him apart? But I don't foresee him coming back. I think that his arc has been closed.
We got Penrose, who made another Canadian donation. What's up? He says, episode 4 twist. Bran imagined episode 3 and it never happened. Ooh, I think that would receive quite the backlash if that happened. I like where you're going. I love the tinfoil. You know, I love the tinfoil, but I think that's just downright crazy, Penrose. Miss Chrono, will Varys help turn the Golden Company against Cersei? Yeah, we kind of talked about that a little bit earlier, but I mean, we're going to see a lot more of the Golden Company in the next episode. It looks like Harry Strickland is going to have a big role in the final 3 episodes. Certainly in the books, he's with Fagon, the fake Aegon. So I don't know if they're kind of merging John Connington and Aegon and him.
I felt like they're merging John Connington with Harry Strickland is what I was taking. Harry Strickland is in the books. He's kind of a puppet leader of the Golden Company. He was only voted in because he was easily manipulated and told to do things. But John Connington in the books is, one of Rhaegar's closest friends. And I don't know. We'll see how that goes. But I think that they've kind of merged the 2 characters together. We've got a much stronger candidate now for leading the Golden Company, and potentially this person would know Illyrio and would know Varys and would be in contact with them because of their ties to Westeros. So there's got to be something there. I agree that he would be integral to bringing that company over to Jon and Dany's side.
We haven't talked about Samwell Tarly at all. Someone says third big twist, Sam is the one to betray, blame it on Tyrion. Something on Tyrion. I don't know exactly what you mean, David. He certainly doesn't like Daenerys. I mean, what is Sam? And you know what's really interesting is he saw Jaime through the flames like Melisandre saw Jon through the flames in that episode. That was kind of, I don't know if that was just like a thing that was happening in the episode, but I kind of thought that was interesting. I don't know if that's like a super small detail that I'm just harping on because I'm a super nerd, but
yeah. For Sam, I don't think he's going to do anything to Tyrion necessarily, but I'm with Kyle that Dany's really upset him, and she's taken actions that was very tyrannical, and to him that didn't need to happen. So he's opposed, obviously, to her taking the throne, and he was already a Jon supporter, but this just furthered his support for basically not having Dany. Dany had made mention of making changes to the Citadel. And to me, now that there isn't a need for the Night Watch, maybe that's where Sam goes back and he starts writing his A Song of Ice and Fire book that really is the story of what we've all learned thus far.
Yeah, I mean, if we're looking at the astrolabe that's in the beginning of a Game of Thrones, that's certain. I mean, the sagas, kind of like how in Norse mythology they would write their sagas on stone and whatnot. So that's pretty interesting. We see obviously the different parts of the sagas moving cyclically over in the middle what looks to be like the sun. So that's pretty interesting. I certainly think we could be headed towards a Bilbo Baggins-esque finale where he's, writing and telling the story like he did in Lord of the Rings. Upside Down King's Landing, sun rises in the west and sets in the east. Jet lag EVS. I mean, the final scenario is like prophecy in the show. I'm not so sure what's happening with that now, but I still think we're going to get some sort of either magic is going to be destroyed or we're going to have a magical type of ending where there's a twist. So I think that I don't necessarily, we haven't heard that talked about in the show too much. I mean, did the Miri Master mention that in the show? I can't remember.
It's a blur for me a little bit on this piece, but that when she is mentioning that, she was mentioning when Dany would see Khal Drogo again, not when Dany would have children again. So you got to go back and read that because she's not really talking about Dany giving birth, but only when she'll be able to see Khal Drogo.
All right, so we're going to take 2 more questions here. One from Chrissy of Oldstone, our moderator, who got one from Shahid, and then one from Miss Chrono. Shahid says, Bronn takes the three-eyed raven, causing Sansa to rally the North to Vale the Tullys and Jon into stopping Dany from burning King's Landing down. The three-eyed raven planned this. So that's pretty intricate. Does Bran get taken? I mean, I don't.
But look, I like it. We like it as fans because it would make sense to us. But I'm trying to put myself in Cersei's shoes. Does it make sense to Cersei? Like, who's Bran and all of this, other than he's a Stark?
Dany or Sansa, one of the two.
Gotta be, right?
Well, Qyburn specifically mentioned Dany, and I think that Cersei. I mean, yeah, Sansa would be nice, but it's got to be Dany. She has dragons. That's I mean, Cersei's smart. She
is. As much as we hate her, as much as I hate her, she is super smart. I like someone put in the comments, we haven't really talked about Arya and Gendry too much. There's been comments about potentially bringing back the Baratheon line and that coming through Arya. I like it. I'm not going to lie. I like it. I'm a fan. Does that mean that potentially Baratheon is, because we know Baratheons are no more, does that mean that Gendry is basically legitimized? I like it. I really do.
There's going to be something interesting there. We know, because like House Mormont is gone. So that's, I mean, we're going to see this interesting final scenario with seeing how many houses are left. House Greyjoy could get wiped out as well, with Yara and Euron. And we could see, you know, some of these smaller houses start to rise towards the end. But here's the final question we're going to end with today. The third twist. Could the third twist be connected, Eric, with Cersei's killer? Because I think that it has to be Jaime. And the conversation between Jaime and Bran not letting Jaime die or people kill him in the north, I think he's going to kill Cersei, but there could be a twist with that. I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's not going to be, clearly the showrunners like to make things a little bit different. They love the fact of having Arya kill the Night King, to all of our, well, not all, some of our dismay. Some of us enjoyed it, some of us didn't. So they like the twist. I don't think it's going to be as cut and dry as everybody thinks it's going to be, and it's going to be Jaime or it's going to be Tyrion. I think there's going to be a twist in there. Now, people are saying, well, that twist has got to be Arya. Yeah, but you know, the showrunners have thought of that. So maybe it's something else. The Valonqar could also be, if we're going off the prophecy, it could be her child, her unborn child. Maybe she dies in complications.
A dwarf, which would be poetic, since she, that's why she hates Tyrion, because Tyrion killed their mother in childbirth.
Right. And again, she's not supposed to have any more than 3 children. So we know if she truly is pregnant, and we don't know how far along she is at this point. We think it's fairly early, but that doesn't mean you can't have complications in early childbirth that still don't end up killing you. But she's not going to give birth to this child, whether she dies at Tyrion's hands, whether she dies at Jaime's hands, or she dies during some kind of complication.
Cersei dies. You're confirming that? I think it has to happen.
It's got to happen. We know it's going to be a bittersweet ending, but I don't think when George says that, he's meaning that the overall outcome to Westeros is going to be bittersweet. I think he is saying that specifically for the characters that we've all come to love and appreciate.
They can't try and find true happiness because their best friends have died.
Right. Either they die, they don't find happiness, there's something that happens to them that we're, at this point, we shouldn't be shocked, but I still think we will be.
I think so as well. And we're going to end it on that note. I think that there's a third twist, and I'm going to talk about it in tomorrow's video. So you'll have to tune in. I'm dropping another video just after we go live here, talking a little bit about some of the interviews we discussed in this stream today. But Eric, thank you for joining me again. We're going to do this a couple more times for sure. We got 2 more. A podcast after Thrones is over.
Let's do it. And hey, you know, we talked about future things as well. I love The Expanse. So if you folks want to know some things about The Expanse, I'm also friends with Ty Frank and Daniel Abraham, the authors of The Expanse. And I don't have maybe as much knowledge or in-depth detail that I do about this series, but I'd love to talk about that with you, Kyle.
Awesome. Yeah, when The Expanse comes back, definitely going to be covering The Expanse. Like I said, there's going to be more stuff on the channel other than Thrones. When Thrones ends, I'm still going to cover Thrones. There's the books in the show. We're going to do all sorts. I don't want to divulge my plans.
No, we got the prequel coming too, Kyle. You know we got to do the prequel.
Yeah, and I see some people say, hey, my question didn't get answered. We got to so many questions today. We're not perfect. We can't get to every single question, but I really, truly appreciate everyone coming to watch us today. If you want to go check out Blackfire, links are in the description of this video. If you want to go check them out. Blackfire, what's next for you, man?
Today, listen, I got big plans. I got Dungeons and Dragons I got to get ready for with Axie. Kyle, my buddy from a podcast of Ice and Fire.
Kyle Maddock.
Group. Yep. Love Kyle Maddock. He's also on the Collider video, or he was this last week talking about Ice and Fire. So yeah, I look, for those that we didn't get to your questions, I'm going to go through some of the comments and I'll take a look, and I'll personally try to answer some of those questions that you have in there, at least give my opinion of what I think is going to happen.
Yeah, for sure. Jake, I saw what you mentioned, but we'll try to get to some of your questions. And like I said, thank you everyone for joining us. Thank you, Eric, for joining. If you enjoyed this video, a thumbs up always helps. And we got quite a few people still left here. And you want to see more content on the channel, lots of videos coming. So thanks again for joining us, everyone. We're going to end the stream like we usually do with a little fun dancing. Let's get the Gandalf Sax Guy song going. Thanks for joining us, everyone, and we'll see you all in the next video. Hype and love.